What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Women Effect Show presented by WINJECT Studios. I am your host, Chris Ross, and if you're new to us, welcome. Really excited and blessed to have you here for the first time. The outcome of this show is to inspire and help you, our listeners, to manifest anything you want out of life. How I go about achieving this is with my philosophy: one heartbeat, one mission, one outcome, and that only leads to you adopt the proper behaviors that will take you to another level of thinking. For today's episode, I'm going to share a conversation with the man behind some of the most noticeable brands across the world, like Google, Los Angeles Lakers, HSBC, Jordan, Pagani, Braun, Louis Vuitton, Miami Heat. He is endorsed by the Iron Mike Tyson, Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, the 46th President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton. I can keep going on and on and on, but it's no wonder why they call him the coach to coaches, Mr. Richard Dolan. If you're tuning in and you're serious about making more money, and if you want to attract better clients, if you need more referrals, if you want to raise more capital, attract partners for joint venture deals, or just need more deal flow, I advise you to pay close attention to the information shared in today's episode. Lastly, text us at 843-396-2104 and let us know how you felt about today's episode. Stand by for a quick message and let's have some fun.
This podcast is part of the WINJECT Studios network, where podcasters come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how to apply to join the network, go to www.winject.com. That's WINJECT.com. If you're ready to make a difference through podcasting, then we're ready to see you there.
The coach of the coaches, Mr. Rich. What's up, man? You know,
What's
right?
up, Chris Ross, man. Look at you, my bearded brother.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I'm starting to get a little gray and a little wisdom more now.
That's okay. Or we
You know what I
can call that. That's called Russ Wheel Trust. That's all good. It's all good.
I love it. The way this is kicking off pretty start. I know that we, of course, have a lot in common and a lot of things that we can kind of go into detail about. But first and foremost, I am extremely honored to be able to have a chance to interview you. And if there's anybody that has ever listened to this show of me, I treat every single person with the same amount of gratitude for holding space and investing some time with me. So I appreciate you, Rich. Thanks.
Hey, man. And I know that I'm coming into your home and the home of others that are listening to you with that trust in place. And I don't take that lightly. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. So intros, all that stuff we do later. So that's all admin stuff, but let's kind of like go into detail. There's a long list of things that we can discuss, but there's also a very short list of some things that people maybe haven't scratched the surface on, Rich. And those are the things I would like to spend more time on. All right. So there's just like, a lot of areas of opportunity where people are like-minded and getting to certain levels of success, whatever that might be for people. The amount of people that you do meet, it's the imprint that you leave onto them. And I truly, truly believe that is the best currency you can ever have in life, is how someone speaks about you when no one's you don't hear you or anything. And especially if there's a room full of people that are some major players and they bring up your name when there's a lot of opportunity there, that's the impact you leave. And I'm searching for, and I see in a lot of different messages from a lot of the work you've done. So well done. So that's what's got me really excited about this conversation, is that we're 100% aligned to that. But like, what do you think? Is that something you can teach, or is that something that it just comes with maybe being obsessed in a some more survival type of way because that was your competitive advantage? I know it's a loaded question to kind of kick off. I just didn't really plan it, but I think it's something that people don't really talk about enough of.
No, man, that's cool. I mean, look, you and I are both lifelong students, and it's because we're lifelong and committed teachers. Yeah. And so why do I answer the question by way of an analogy? And this happens to me all the time. I don't know about you, Chris, but as a young dad, I'm sure you're finding yourself in stores buying Pampers and toys and things that your little girl won't need much now, and I'm sure she'll outgrow soon. But here's the analogy. You walk into a store and you're really just enamored with something. And so you've really, truly made the choice to buy it. So you pick it up and you walk to the cashier, but there's a long line. There's a long line. And in that moment, you start to reconcile the ideology, like, hey, maybe I don't even need this thing. Like maybe I don't even know if I can afford this thing. And so you may have, in fact, decided to buy it, but have chosen to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really all comes down to understanding what choices you make. And so when you think about and understand both the tenacity and tenure of great relationships, it comes down to what decisions are you making? What choices are you making? It comes down to what kind of a dude do I want to be? What kind of a man do I want to grow up to be? What don't I want to be? And it's really easy, especially as one dad to another, to say, hey, if my son or your daughter were to run into someone that knew us 20, 30 years from now, what would you pray to God and hope that they would say about their pop?
Oh my God. Have you tuned into any of my shows before?
Well, dude, I mean, I've been researching you quite extensively.
Okay. All right. So,
and you that's what I said to you right before we went live, is you talk a lot like me.
yes.
Or I talk a lot like you.
Vice
But
versa, yeah.
at the end of the day, sometimes when you're doing the right thing and you hear the right thing, you're on the right path. And so that's how you and I jam real well.
I love this because I have been screaming since I became a father that the reason why I'm putting in the extra work on top of a lot of things that I do is my daughter's opinion on me when she's 35. Because that's why we're all here. I mean, you know, you even have to work harder because of I'm going to have to train her and you know, mold her and make sure that I'm creating an environment for her to be a little bit more creative. And that way she doesn't feel like, okay, my dad's got this company and this. I want to still instill with her, like, listen, if you want $1, you better go get it. How can you increase your value? And that's the other side of it. I think it comes from how we were cut it a long time ago. Bro, like you put me on the phone next to someone else, I'm going to outwork that son of a gun. Because it is the way it is. I'm obsessed. Whatever I'm working on, I'm going after it. Like I am so aggressive.
But you see, that's because, Chris, just a slipstream, that's your thing. So like you walked into the store of life, you said, I'm going to take that, and that's called obsessed. So you've not only decided it, you've chosen it. And every day what people don't realize is that you've got to keep choosing it. You don't wake up every morning it choosing you. You've got to choose it. Because people don't realize, and maybe some do, that inside this mind of yours, this brain, this material that weighs only about 8 pounds, depending on how big you are and what you're up to and what your genealogy is, but it's only perfected one act over 3 million years, and that's the act of survival.
Yes.
Not to go get it, not to be obsessed, not to blow it up, show it up, or risk it to get the biscuit. I mean, it's only wired to do one thing, and that's survive. So even being motivated, inspired, good-hearted, loving, affectionate, all those other wonderful things that animate and amplify your experience in life, your joy in life, your interconnectivity in life, even your passion for faith, your passion for God, your passion for wanting more, getting more, being obsessed just as you are. It's all an extension of that choice. And what people don't realize, and I hope that they get, especially following you and doing the great work that you've been doing, is that you got to keep choosing it. You've got to keep choosing it.
Every day's a choice. Every day's a choice. Every day. Every day when I wake up, and most people, this is where like my bedroom, that's my sanctuary. That's the way I look at.
What kind of show is this going into right now, Chris?
Right? Yeah, we can curse and we can do whatever you want, right? So
you got me. I'm coming into your bedroom. Continue.
Right? Yeah. So think about this overall for a second. When I go into my room at night, there's no technology that walks in that sucker with me. None. Why? Because when I wake up in the morning, I am a nature of habit. We all are creatures of it. I will end up grabbing my phone because I'm running several businesses. I'm doing several things, but everything in my phone is a distraction. And it's I would say probably the best way to kind of like really describe what it is in my phone is everyone else's request of what is in the best interest of them. Not me, not my family, not the path, not my true essence of me as an individual. So the first, when eyes pop open, I need to know what's happening within my own self. And that's a choice. It starts with a choice and it ends with a choice. But you got to be conscious of the choices that you make. A lot of them we make, and they say on the average, what, 30 to 40,000 choices a day. Most of them are not that simple to, like, oh, I'll wear the color blue. Oh, I'll wear this. I'll wear that. Or I'll do this. I'll brush my teeth here. I'll do this. These are a lot of things that become a habit in terms of, obviously a different personality trait for you if you don't pay attention to. But I start my day with a choice on purpose. That's what's attention.
Well, and just a slipstream with that, if I may, is that you're right. Whether they're 10, 20, 30, 40,000 automatic choices, it's because most people are living in automatic.
Yes. Bam. That was my point. Yep.
That's right. So as you're in automatic, you got to realize that the only thing your brain is doing as it's in automatic is predicting the future for your safety. That's it. Not for your sanity, not for your success, not for achievement, not for your joy, not for your bliss, just to stay intact. Right. And that's not usually an empowering place. It's usually just enough to get by, enough to survive another day, enough to, in fact, call tomorrow a reality. Yeah.
And that's where when you make that shift into living in an abundant lifestyle, not an abundant mindset, abundant lifestyle. So everything I do needs to be abundant. Is enough up, and there's an opportunity, but that's looking at life through a certain lens that you can't look through if you're not in that way of thinking.
Well, and you got to also expand that to give people some access to something, which is perhaps the means of measuring. So if you say abundant, what you mean by abundant and what I mean by abundant might be two different things.
Yes.
Like I might have 2 cars in my garage, and that ain't enough for my partner who has 16 cars in his garage. He calls that abundance. I call that, dang, that's cool. But I mean, for me, the measurement would be that you've got from the very left, the very extreme left of not having enough. And we all know what that might look like. Then you've got enough, right? Then you'd have more than enough. And then you'd have abundance. Abundance is not recognizing either what you have or don't have, but you've got everything you'll ever need.
It's not even knowing the difference between work and play. That's what like you're living in that medium. Like I learned how to slow down time a while back. The conscious and unconscious part of your brain that goes to sleep at night. I've learned how to focus on one thing. If I'm having a conversation with Rich, I'm having a conversation with Rich, and I'm 100% present. And it's where the reason why I had to learn this for myself is ego. So that ego was was something that was not just ruining my relationships, but it was ruining my growth. Because if you get stuck in the past and if you get caught on something, you get angry, that's past. If you're trying to think about something, you're anxious or you're getting caught up in a lot of people that get depressed or whatever that might be, that's more of a future type of state. But if you're 100%, like nothing matters, man. Only thing matters right now.
Well, and that raises the question is what are you really committed to? So to riff off that for a moment, when people are really anxious and they're really trying to project themselves in the future, it brings the question kind of like even how we're named. We're called Homo sapiens, when really we should be considered Homo prospectus. Do you know that we're the only species on the planet that thinks about the future? We contemplate the future. The only species. I mean, you don't have a chimpanzee saying, "I wonder what I'll do on Tuesday." You don't have an American eagle saying, "Gosh, I wonder if we should go south for the winter." I mean, you've got ourselves enraptured, as you said, ego of what I also would call a concept of self. So it depends on what commitment you're serving. If you're serving a commitment that's really for one's daughter, one's son, one's legacy, or one's stand for the world, to abolish this, to reconcile that, to rectify a challenge, and or to absolve a huge upset, or are you living from the commitment of this concept of yourself, having nice things, keeping up the appearances, being able to keep up with the Joneses, which might be a term that some of the older folks might remember, or keeping up with the Kardashians, which
either or. It's a long way to chase. Yeah,
that's right. It's like, so everyone thought, well, gosh, that's the way beautiful looks. It should look like this and be pouty like that, and have this and have that. When who said that's abundance? Who determined that was what wealth would look like? Well, who said that when you get there, you're happy? Because here's what happens. Although the characters change in one's life, the screenplay is the same, and the movie still stars you. So you've got to be at peace with the choices and the commitments you've made, because they guide you.
I was just, when I was talking about that speech I was giving the other night, and maybe just all these things are like little fire bombs popping off in my own mind when we're having this discussion, and we didn't really plan obviously to going all the way, like jumping out the gate, but that's what we do anyway, right? So like I was telling everyone listening and tuning into this, like I want everyone to write this down at the beginning. I want you to write down truth and illusion, and I'll circle back to that here in a little bit. But you need to know the difference. So what is true? What's your truth? Who are you? What are you about? And you can go back and reverse engineer everything else that's ever happened to you. And if you spend some time with me today, I'm going to show you that everything's in a freaking illusion. It's not real. The only thing that matters is now. So what are you going to do about it? Nope. Stop thinking. What are you going to do? Is it deep in your subconscious? I mean, you've coached some of my idols growing up, to be honest with you. We just start name dropping Mike Tyson. I mean, you go through your scroll. Like, we don't need to go on into detail. But when it's deep in your subconscious and it's deep there, that's the reason why the military trains to their eyes bleed. It's because we need to know what's going to happen, and do you really want it? There's no plan B, and there's no C. There's go. So when I force people to like adopt that way of thinking, they get really uncomfortable. Why is that, Rich?
Well, because it's only when your absolute essence of survival is threatened do you actually really relocate yourself.
There it is.
You know, I have a saying that if you want high performance in life, you've got to have low tolerances.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have low performance in life, it's because you've got high tolerances. So one of my earliest mentors would say is that the integrity of my life and my performability actually lives on the dust particles on the blinds of my window. And I'd say, are you nuts, man? Are you considering I should be OCD? I should be getting myself cleaning that? He goes, well, I want you to get that the integrity, your commitment to high performance would live in the dust particles on that blind, because
wow,
how minute of the details are you looking at and are committed to getting clean, getting clear, getting out of the way so to perform. And I couldn't get that when I was young until I lived through those experiences. And you realize, gosh, I've got high tolerances, low performance because I got the wrong dudes in my life. I got people who died in my life. I'm drinking too much in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm learning from the wrong people. I'm not following people who are a living demonstration of what they speak and what they sell. And right in that moment, you realize, gosh, I gotta really understand my standards a bit better. So Chris, for your audience and all those who've been following you for all now 4 seasons, my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
One of the things I'd love people to get is that, you know, you're a guy who understands the importance of having high standards, which is then, of course, equal and proportionate to very low tolerances.
Yeah.
Where there's low tolerances, there's peak performance. And so, you know, that's important to note. You know, you cited Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was at his very best because when Customato, he would admit to me, and I mean, gosh, I've been with Mike Tyson for over 12 years now. Blessed to call him a friend, probably more blessed to have my ears to show for it. Because we've always butted heads. We've never bitten each other, but we've come damn close. And but he had admitted to me that when Cuss was his coach and his corner man, above all else, he really knew that he had to listen to Cuss because that was law, that was truth. Low tolerance, high performance. The minute that cornerman was gone, though, he had very, very high tolerances. Led a lot of different people in his life. He got swayed in different directions, and all hell broke loose. And I guess everyone knows his story. So it's not to say that you should be living within a stringent rule set course of action and commitments. No, it's just to really once in a while ask yourself, am I at the source of my results or am I at the expense of them?
Yep. Big bam.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go, that's a whole other topic right there. We can go on for freaking 5 hours with, because you talked about the truth. It is unscapable truth. You can't run away from it at all. Like you cannot run away from it. It is unscapable. When you lose that type of foundation and that anchor in life, you need to put something that's going to carry the same weight or significance that where you are viewing it, not by someone else's views. They're dropping it into that void.
Well, and that brings up your I want to bring it back into our present, which is the truth versus the illusion. And,
yes.
and when you brought that up, it really struck a chord for me. And I want to make sure that folks at home write this down too, with the notes in which you asked them to, which is that whenever you're looking at trying to decipher truth or you are in the presence of an illusion, The experience people have is being seduced.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of, for example, what I think is a big challenge with, for example, social media, where sometimes some people are teaching you something, but sometimes what people are trying to do is seduce you into thinking that that's the way success looks. This
Mm-hmm.
means having it all. When you drive this, when you're wearing that, when you've got a watch, when you've got a girl, when you've got a dude, and they all look like this, that's
Oh man, no man,
yeah.
I swear to God,
And it's
me
like,
and you, man, we got to spend some. We got to. I can't wait for the future. We're gonna spend so much time together with this
yeah,
because this is the thing that literally that spark inside of me. Because I've been behind the scenes for so freaking long, and I know that this is where a lot of the stuff that you're doing now, and congratulations on cutting that safety net every single day and getting everyone needs to know that you're the guy behind a lot of freaking players that were pulling some strings. So, and God bless you, man. If there's anything I can ever do to throw you up in up in the air and be like, Rich, get him. You better get him. It's a hot commodity. He's going to turn everyone to a millionaire. You better watch. It's like,
no, it's cool, man. I mean, look, when I got the call and I got to work with the Miami Heat right before we won our back-to-back championships, that was cool. I mean, when I got the call when the Oprah network was about to fail and had to do a cross North America tour to recalibrate its attention, that was cool. I mean, when we needed to kind of create a whole new brand called the Clinton Global Initiative, and I got the call from President Clinton, that was cool. When Tyson was, I mean, way overweight and could not stand the sight of himself, and I got the call, that was cool. So, I mean, you've got to ask yourself, what put me in a position to be able to be the one who gets the phone call? And that's all about putting yourself in rooms where you can fix real problems with real approaches that really work.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And doing with ease, with a level of trust there, and knowing that, hey, there's something that it happens intuitively when you're having a conversation, when someone gives off the impression like, listen, even if shit goes haywire, I'm still capable of dealing with that haywire you. So, and that's so important. Let's talk about that just for a second. That's powerful.
Let me give it to you, because that was a good riff, man. And by the way, if you're listening in, if you're tuning in, and you're watching both, Chris and I jamming here, this is really cool when two musicians come together, never practiced before, and we're just jamming. This is really
just having fun. Yeah.
Intellectually, conversationally, Chris, what a pleasure to be here with you. But the term I would invite people to write down that I've just freshly coined, and you can use it, is you begin to look at the degree and quality of one's stick-to-itness, right? One's stick-to-itness, because what often gets us to stick to things is our skin in the game, the price we paid, right? What's at stake. But stick-to-itness is measured by how you stick to it, no matter how it's working, no matter how it's going.
Love that.
It's the person who says, look, I'm giving myself 12 weeks to get in shape, and they stick to it. Even though the needle doesn't move and they don't lose at a single damn pound for week on week on week, they stick to it. And on it goes, whether it's a budget regimen, whether it's saving or investing or loving or trying to get off an addiction, or whether it's trying to fall back in love with your faith or your future. The degree and quality of one's stick-to-itness is always going to be equal and proportionate to the outcome. And so some people call that perseverance. I don't like to call it resilience, because resilience by definition is the returning to original form. So I'm not big on resilience, but stick-to-itness is like, why are you sticking to it? And why would that matter to you? Right, Chris?
Right. And why is it going to serve you long-term? Have you really looked at the metrics behind it? Does that data support that? So how did you go about making this type of decision? And I always put it back on them. Like, listen, if you're going to hold on to something that freaking hard, is it really helping you, man? Like, look at all these other aspects where you can maybe let go of some of these, and you can still get what you want in the end result. It may take longer, but how can you really not compromise your quality of life and the standards in life and still get there with this much resistance there? But this is much resistance you're dealing with right now. Allow the universe to do the hard work for you. And I usually just sit back and just let them go. And of course, they're going to like kick and when you say something like, no, I wouldn't say profound, when you say something that really strikes a nerve, and they go, well, maybe he's right.
Well, look at you. Like, look at you, for all your listeners and all your followers. Like, let's unpack you a little bit. Like, think about the way in which you are so successful at what you do and how you've done it in the realm of sales. I mean, if you really were to get to the core, the essence, the real true epicenter of what drives Chris Ross the way he rocks, Sure, there might be a science and there might even be a philosophical approach, but dude, I bet you any money that the bottom line is you do not want to disappoint your sister, which really shaped a lot of the way in which you tick and talk, and I do mean speak, to be able to say, I've honored the blessing that I've got as a result of the blessing that you've lived. And I want to be proud, and I want to honor that blessing by being an extreme example of being successful with the opportunity to be so.
That means so much to me. That's a big compliment.
But it's the observation, right? That's the truth.
And you know, and I appreciate it. And it means the world to me, because even no matter, you know, how high or how much we're trying to like really get ourselves to and elevate ourselves, and we can only elevate as many people to elevate ourselves. At some point you're going to plateau, but that's the competitive advantage I draw from. Even when it's kind of hard, man. As we talked about Mike Tyson, and I mentioned before, like he mentioned in a quote, it's kind of hard to run 5 miles in a freaking morning when you got silk boxers on. You get complacent. I don't come from money. You don't either. And I come from a world where great people, and there's some really strong individuals that are around me, help mold. I'm a shared legacy of them. So when they see me, they should see them. So when we talk about my sister, I cannot, and I will not look her in the face and have her just be a millisecond be disappointed on my result.
Well, I want to say this for everyone that's listening. I want you to write this down, because what Chris just said was exactly true. Is we are all byproducts of, aside from the choices and decisions, we know that. But here's the one I want you to write down. Chris is a byproduct of the conversations you're in, the environment that grew you, and the people that helped you or inspired you. That's what I am. So I didn't come from the Lucky Sperm Club. I mean, I didn't go to the good school. I'm a high school dropout. I mean, I'm a statistical impossibility. But how did that happen? Well, because of the people that mentored me, groomed me, and those who I looked up to and was inspired by, that created a conversation that I kept elevating myself into. Just as Chris, just as I'm certain to think that many people that are listening to this conversation also too. But if you want to change your elevation, you've got to alter the conversation.
Yes, 100%. And are you tuned in to listen to the subtle drops? And your mind needs to be impressionable to it. If you're not going to, it's kind of like you turning into a station and tuning it in. You go to the F. Remember back in the day when they had FM or AM radios, and they're like, and there's that one little, and you would hear it.
You got stereo.
Yes. Yeah. Like, and you would go, you can hear it. Like, don't move the car. Right? That's what you're listening for.
You and I are now aging ourselves on this call.
Right. Yeah. We're old as shit now.
But you see, what you're touching on is the abandonment of precision.
Yes.
Right. The abolishment of impeccability. That's the human condition today, which is like, you know what? I'll Google it. You know, there's such a lackadaisiness about it. And I'm not trying to point fingers at generation X, Y, or Z, or my son's generation or your daughter's generation to grow up to and into. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to force and forge. We need to force and forge our own character.
Right.
So to, in fact, be able to make smart decisions, hold to our choices, be true to our commitments, and generate that tenacity every single day. To be, as you are, Chris, obsessed.
Would you say that it's probably in our best interest of our children and the people that we're around, as in future shared legacy, and the people we are future going to be coming in contact with, to ensure that they're looking through life in a way of everything's a tool? Is how you utilize that tool, rather than taking a step back and be like, I'm going to use this as a crutch because I can go on my phone and hit, hey, who did this at 1985? And blah, 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 and getting that information. But what did you take from that information? Are you taking it to another level, or are you just taking that information that computer system gave me, that tool gave to you?
Well, let's reverse engineer that statement, because it's pretty.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know about you, not yet, because your daughter's so young. But I have a 14-year-old boy, and I remember I caught myself early on saying, "Well, gosh, son, when I was your age, I used to." Of
course, yeah, 5 miles in the snow.
Oh yeah, I used to walk 3 miles every day to this, and now your mother, is carting you around in a Range Rover. My goodness, look at you. And then one day I woke up and realized that's just downright wrong, because it's just different time. These are different times, as in when he has children, those will be different times from the times he grew up in. Right. So the only thing that matters isn't not just the example we're living and the example we're leading from, or the people we are inspired to be, so to inspire them to draw and attract them. One thing, it just comes down to the fact that you act. Always in action, always in action, always in action. So no matter what the conditions that your daughter, my son, or anybody listening right now are in, the only way stuff doesn't stick is that you move.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's still sticking, move faster.
Right. Move. You got to, I mean, so you got to look at how many reps. Look at the reps. So, and this is a really good segue to pull it back in the strains, because you come from Toronto, just from my knowledge. I think you put everything in glad bags when you were 16-year-old and hauled ass, right? I think you went back when you got exposed to, just from the knowledge, just from the information that Nate May, if you're listening to this, love you, brother. He's the one to give me other stories. He's like, you got to meet this guy, because I'm telling you, like, you and him are just like, you got to meet. So I loved, and I never want to overlook that. So and I appreciate Nate.
Of course, I love it.
And he said that you watched a movie, Wall Street or something. You watched it and like, oh my God, this is a real life. And then you went back home and stole your dad's suit or some shit. Is it? Am I?
Look, dude. So I watched Wall Street. You know, Gordon,
right?
Played by Michael Douglas. It had Charlie Sheen. It was, who played Bud Fox. And aside from all the unusual idiosyncrasies of the movie, there was a line, there was a moment where Gordon Gekko, with his Rolex watch and his slick back hair, and he's speaking to a bunch of shareholders. He said, "Greed is good." And I thought, wow, what a controversial thing to say. Even as young as I was, I didn't even know what that meant, but I just liked how it sounded. And so, some people fall in love with actors and actresses, movie stars and or rock stars. And in that moment, I said, I want to be like that guy. That dude right there, Gordon Gekko. Greed is good. So I jumped on a bus, and with the only $5 I had, I bought a book on how to buy stocks, because that was what the movie Oliver Stone was, which was stockbrokers. So at 16 years of age, I got a job as a cold call cowboy, making 305 cold calls a day every day for a company called Merrill Lynch. And I had no reason to be there. I had no qualification to be there. I literally just snuck in and just barely got this job.
Get on a phone. Just get on a phone.
I was tenacious and I looked the part. So yes, I stole my father's suit, had him tie the one tie that I kept for months because I didn't know how to tie one. I kept it hung around my bedroom knob there. But for 2 years, I made 300 cold calls a day every day. And again, to your point, Chris, I broke records and set new standards, not because I was the best, but because I was the hungriest.
Yes. Wow. And it came from survival.
Yeah.
That's survival.
Totally. So then I got kicked out of the house for just being a kind of a troublemaker. And, so at 16, I packed my things. I moved out on my own. I moved in with a beautiful woman who was my girlfriend at the time. She goes, "Listen, this is not no free ride. We're all roommates here. You pay this much per month, and we have cable and electricity." I said, "Aren't those things with the house? Like, don't they just come with this place?" And they're like, "No, you got to pay for those." And so out of sheer survival, I worked even harder. So for the first 3 years of my career, I just really understood firsthand what it meant to work hard. And again, not to make this a segue into another conversation, but that's my only concern about the future generations, right?
Me too.
They can be as hungry as they want to be, but will they be willing to work as hard as they must to get even a fraction of what they desire, right?
I think also on top of that, the art of cold calling, the art of having a genuine conversation or a genuine interest in the other person, of not knowing anything about them in this day of age of I can Google and find out everything, even your house. I can put your address in and know exactly. I'm like, well, tell me about your mailbox. And it's like, why is it purple? And I'm like, what the freak? Like, that's something that's going to, it's already moved away from, but it comes from where I come from. Is I want to generally, when I'm getting cold called, no one's paying attention to me, right? You can't see me. So I'm calling you and I'm like, "Rich, what's going on, man?" I'm at like, I don't know you. I know you from 10 years ago. "Man, I haven't seen you in a while. What's going on, Rich?" I'm like, "Of course I haven't seen you well because I never met you, but here's my name and here's what I do. And here's why you don't want to hang up."
Yeah, listen, those tactics and strategies only come out of the genius of being in the field of play. And so when you look at the power and the magic of even athletes and how amazing they are, it all comes down to playable hours. The more time they put into a thing, they become masterful at that thing. And inside of whether it's sales or whether it's speaking or coaching or providing mentorship or services, I don't care if you're a dentist, a lawyer, or a chiropractor, the more time you got on the field of play, the more creative, the more collaborative, the more predictive you become, because you're just someone who's building your super machine up here on the predictability of every move that follows. So you're
that's
right.
the only way. Yeah, that's the only way to predict your future is create it right now.
100%.
And putting into work.
That's right, because there's some things that scripts won't cover. There's some things that no matter what books you've read and how to go do sales, the best way to really build mastery in anything is to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it.
And over. I actually have a I'm going to say it anyway, to hell with it. I was on a phone with an individual and I was enrolling people into a trade school, and I got on the phone and I was calling and I was cold calling. By the time I got this person to answer the phone, I was going through my, not the script, because I've always been the guy that was outside the box and I would just have a conversation. But every once in a while, when you're just really just in that conversation and you're feeling it, you sometimes, and this is years, feels like 2 lifetimes ago, 3 probably, I felt like I pigeonholed myself in a conversation. And she came back and goes, I'm a stripper. That's what she did for a living. How I went about handling that with ease is how I got the enrollment. And I ended up enrolling everyone that was like worked with her. Is I took it in. Oh, really? Which place? What led you to doing that? Well, I came from where did you come from in New York? What part in New York? And I sort of kept asking questions. An inexperienced person, or maybe an inexperienced person of being exposed to something like that, would have freaking wouldn't have known what to say. Well, I used my own pause as my own way of interesting. And I went for the next question.
But that's why you're a legend, man. If it was me, I'd say stripper, prove it.
See, but if I'd have been stripper, that the tone and the way that I said that, how many times do you think she goes and she's embarrassed to say that? I don't knock what anybody does for a living if they're working.
Right. Well, I mean, for all young listeners out there, if I were you, here's the updated script to what Chris Ross just said. I don't believe you. Please prove it. Where should I see you?
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I want to see. But, it just so happened in trade school. And if you're listening to this, oh my gosh, I have to send it to her. She was my director that when it hired me, she basically told me in an interview, can you do this and shut the hell up? I said, yeah, I can do it. So, but when I started, the programs that we had at that facility in the trade school had an aesthetics program. So aesthetics, like, makeup, hair, and all that stuff. Perfect. That was my ideal client. Ideal client. I enrolled everyone. So it was great. Plus I got a lot of happy hours. So I mean, it is what it is, but that comes from you just putting yourself out there and being vulnerable.
Yeah. And not taking yourself so damn seriously. I think we got to loosen the grip and the obsession for being perfect.
Oh, wow. Bam.
Just embrace your humility and your humanity and realize that, like, number one, people aren't really paying that much attention to you. Number one, so get over yourself. Number one. Number two is no one really is really paying attention and taking notes and documenting the times in which you fail. So if you really get over the fact that people are judging you and assessing you, which is true, you're judging and assessing yourself anyway. But if you can actually always fail and fall forward and know that you'll always get up because you'll always be moving, you're not going to take so damn seriously yourself when you do fail, or the opportunity to fail actually presents itself, because it's in those failures and in the belly of a fire that you actually really forge the best parts of yourself.
Right. I think I respond the best like chaos. When everything's like shit hits the fan, I respond better that way.
By the way, that's what, one of the 4 things that Mike Tyson and I, we had an interview just about maybe 3 months ago or 4 months ago. And one of the 4 things he says that people need to really embrace is chaos. Because as he would say, is that it's only in chaos you get to rediscover the true character you are.
And this is something that you just don't forget. I don't think you can ever forget. I mean, I'm sure that there's been times in your life where you can maybe think of a couple and go, man, if I just shared what was actually really going on in my life, people are like, how the fuck was he able to win? Like, I've actually had people in my life, like, there's no way he'll come back from this. There's no way. But it's, obviously early. I'm like, man, you have to lean into those type of moments. I chose this right at the beginning, and we keep dropping this. I chose to make the decision to lean in. And I wanted to embrace the chaos and embrace what was happening and how far can I take the pain. And then I embrace it so much that I can literally feel what I felt like at that moment. And I look back on it now going, that's when you transfer that, or the whole mindset and the whole mentality inside of you. You go from why me, there's no victim, to try me. I want you, go ahead. Let's go. You ready? Like, I thought this game's called I Win. You want to play? Let's play. So and you just got to take it. Then that's something that you have to live in those moments.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to put in, you mentioned the putting in the hours and mastering something. Well, I mastered being in chaos. So I know what it's going to feel like. I think that's probably entrepreneurship that people don't talk about a lot of. It's like, how do I put myself in the right position, the right people? That's all great. But how much can you overcome adversity?
Well, and it's not a straight line, brother. It's not, as you know, it's not a straight line.
Right.
Being an entrepreneur is a lot like being a pilot. And I mean, that plane will fly off course a number of times before it gets to its destination, but only because it's your commitment to getting there. And in one piece, will you get there? Right. And then you realize, no, you know what? The reason why, 1 in 3 entrepreneurs actually make it is because the 2 that don't, for every 3 that try, is because the moment things go off course, they make that mean a ton of different things. I'm not getting it right. I'm going to be a big failure. People are going to discover me. I'm going to go broke. And they can't stomach the idea of failing when you've got to be in love with being off course, because that's just par for the course.
Right. We got to be a dripping faucet. It's like a little bit more. I mean, I'm not that faucet is never going to turn all the way open for me. So I know that I'm only measuring, reassessing that small drip. As long as I can manipulate that small drip to become a 1% better rather than a 1% worse, I'm winning.
No, you got it.
An infinite game. As long as I keep playing this game, and as long as the resources are there, and that's by asking for help. I see so many people that don't ask for help. And before we kind of get way off track here, I want to bring up one thing that really jumped out to me. And I just have to say to you that it's probably one of the most out of the box thinking way of looking at your situation at time. You were doing a lot of sponsorships for events, some bigger names in the industries. And you had I think it was a booth at the end of the back of the thing, right? In a booth. So you're sitting in a booth, and I put myself in this world for a second. And I have to say, and I was like, man, this is actually pretty genius. But putting yourself in a booth, you realize that all these big names are coming. No one wants to talk to Rich. Who the hell are you, right? So then you found a way of, how do I get on stage and say, I'm going to introduce this person? But one thing that I think you did was fucking genius. What do people do at events? They take notes.
They take notes.
And what did you do the whole time that you were sitting there watching these people talk and speak?
Well, what was amazing was after I talked my way up on stage, and once I got a chance to then introduce big speakers, I realized that what people were doing in the audience were just taking notes. And so when I went up there and I introduced myself and said, hi, my name is Richard Dolan. I've got this firm. It's at the very back of the room. And we've got this really great opportunity for you that if you're taking notes, my offer is this. In exchange for your business card, so it gives me the permission to be in contact with you, you don't have to take notes. I'm not only taking notes for you, I'm taking notes for you from behind the stage, talking to those who are on stage so you can fully enjoy the whole learning experience here. Dude, I mean, there was literally the first show I did that at, our booth got pummeled because we couldn't actually take the number of people that actually came to us with all their business cards. Of course, the convener was very upset because he saw
right, of course,
untapped opportunity. So I became the new sponsor of that new service. But that put me on the map. That's all about what we've just been talking about, Chris, which is, you're on the playing field and you're inventing plays on the go, right? You're inventing plays on the go. You're always looking on the playing field to say, what's the next best, most amazing thing I can do that can bring this ball closer to the net? And if you're not looking that way and just stuck in a certain way of doing it, you're going to forego the opportunity of being creative, imaginative, right? Collaborative and super creative in such a way that you're actually going to be able to push that ball up and down the court differently. So for me, that was, I mean, just an amazing moment of innovation.
Right. In that moment of innovation for you, wouldn't have, I guess you would say, come to you or spoken to you if you weren't in tune to pay attention to the small details. But if you were in that situation where like, well, I don't know if I can do this. This was something I learned from my father years ago, man. I've worked 2-3, he's the hardest worker man I've ever met in my life. And he's just blood, sweat, and tears, working 18 hours a day, getting up, doing the same shit over and over and over because he had to, because now I get to do what I get to do. Right. So, and I look back at that and I appreciate everything he taught me. But one thing he did teach me verbally is you want something, you better go take it. There's nobody in this life is ever going to hand you shit. You go take it. And that's something you took. Did you ask for permission?
No, I have a saying. Someone asked me the same kind of question, and God bless your dad, by the way. But there's two things I'll say. Number one, there's always a line. There's always a line between you and what you want. Yeah. You just got to find it, right? That's just number one. And so it might be like this, and it might require you to do this.
Right.
Require to offer notes that you now have to scramble in the backstage and now come up with the actual damn notes, and on you go and on you go. But the second thing is this, and someone had asked me this when they had said to me, when you won your second championship ring at the Miami Heat, I noticed that you took pictures behind the scenes and with the trophies and all that kind of stuff. Can you explain how that all unfolded? I said, first of all, you got to know that although I was a part of an advisory team, I didn't have the right credentials with me for that final game.
Right.
So the people would ask me the question, well, how did you get in? I said, well, I didn't need an invitation. I was the invitation.
Yes. Wow.
So
love it.
For you to really, embody the genius of what your dad taught you and what it is that we're both talking about is that when you show up, you're showing up because you're coming with the existential invitation. Like, I'm here because I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
It doesn't live in your words. Like, hey, well, is my name not on the list? Like, are you sure?
Yeah. It comes from the energy that you're transferring outward. Right. You're very conscious of, but everyone else really is conscious of because they can feel you. You don't need to say shit. They feel you.
And I got to tell you, I've many times got caught where I'll bring a friend with me, and I've learned real quick that it doesn't work because I'm involved in the invitation, and he's like, "What the heck, man?"
Like, holding onto your belt loop and stuff. Like, hey, man, let me in. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know who that dude is. He's like, Rich, what are you doing? I don't know. How did you know my name? See you, buddy. But the more of the story is you got to be the invitation. And in a world right now that's more competitive than ever before, more visible than ever before, no thanks to the social media platforms and whatnot, and celebrities have got guards up, and I mean the doors are closing harder than ever before. It's not about being creative, it's about being more generative. You've got to generate the invitation. You've got to be able to say, look, I'm here because I belong here. You tell me why I shouldn't be here. And
exactly. Who are you, little guy? So you got to be at home on who you are and who you're not. I know exactly who I am, and I know exactly who I'm not. And I'm not going to be the guy that conforms and goes in line just because someone else told me to go in line. Who are you to tell me to go in line? Who pays your salary? You don't know who I am.
That's right. And as much as I would just caution anybody to think that, don't get debateful, although I know Chris and I are just having a conversation.
Right. That's a whole different, that's a mentality, not us verbalizing. Please. And then just to let everyone understand this, we're not saying this because we verbalize that. That's our mentality.
That's right.
Because you can come across very disrespectful.
100%. So as long as you lead with love, and as long as you lead with that heart, man, I mean, doors open. You're welcomed in, and you get to stay. So it's important.
And then you embrace the vulnerability side of it, and that's what's really difficult in today's age. And a lot of people, when they haven't put in the work, and you mentioned this, and I'm going to do a little segue on what you're doing now for so many great people out there. I mean, the coach is behind the coach. You're the guy of the guy. There's only one guy. Okay. Yeah. And what you're doing, and you're opening up the doors with, I don't even know how much videos on how much content you actually have. Holy crap, and credibility there. And if anybody's paying attention to this and you want to become the guy behind the guy or the guy, this is the guy. Okay. That's a big deal, man.
It is. Coaching coaches in the NBA or in the F1 or in the NFL or in one of the 5 Hollywood unions for actors and actresses. I'm super blessed to be able to have at my disposal an arsenal of human empowerment and betterment technologies that I've been entrusted with over the past few years of being in this business. So I've written 14 books. I've been a visiting professor at universities. I've taught programs. I've written programs. I've worked with all the greatest leaders and top thinkers. I've come to call leaders, legends, and gods.
Yeah.
our space, literally, from Tony Robbins to Deepak to Robin Sharma, all of them. Grant Cardone just recently and I worked together for the past 18 months on globalizing his brand. So, I mean, for me, being armed with all that stuff, being a coach to the coach, if you're wanting to coach and empower people, mentor people, lead people, you want to speak, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many with power, poise, and presence. I mean, in that realm, there's a lot of really great mastery available to you. And so I'm just really happy that we've launched it in such a way that it's accessible, it's affordable, and it's technological, so that we can access people all around the world at different times, given the times we're in.
What do you look for as in bringing on a client?
Well, one for sure is commitment. I mean, just because you got a credit card and or a check that clears doesn't make you qualified. We interview everyone that comes into our world, and all because we have a brand promise that whatever you came for, you will get.
Yes.
We've released clients before saying, listen, just because you pay doesn't mean you're going to play. And,
I love this.
And so it's really keeping people's feet to the fire, because I'm willing to keep my feet to the fire. So it's like, if I'm keeping my feet to the fire and you don't have your feet to the fire, then it's not fair to me to be able to exchange for you the value you've come for.
Love that.
So a big part of the statement you've made, I want to share it with everyone. When JC had said, when you reminded me of this, that the game of hip hop needs me. It's like, that's why you do what you do. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that I think I finally woke up after the pandemic that has exasperated the underlying belly burn to the self-help, self-leadership space that thrives on the seduction of selling sexy and glittery things. It's like, let's get back to being effective. Let's make an impact. Like, hey everybody, let's make an impact.
That's right. Let's do it this way.
Let's actually change lives. Let's cause irreversible transformation in the way people live and lead. Let's actually do what we say we're going to do. And the best part is, and I want you to write this down, everybody at home, and Chris knows this, is that I'm a big proponent. My battle cry, if there were one, or a bumper sticker, if I were to put on any one of my cars, is going to be become a living demonstration of the stuff you speak, the stuff you sell. So whatever I sell, I'm a screaming demonstration for it. So I'm always holding myself to account to that standard, always.
And that standard you're holding yourself to, I know that you do it when no one's fucking watching. You're doing it when no one's watching, and you don't need to tell me that, because I feel that. And that's something you can't teach. I can write out exactly what I say to people on the phone and write it out. And they'll go, I don't understand, Chris. I'm not getting the results. That's because you're not turning yourself into the person that is able to say that with confidence.
Because you're hitting the nail on the head as we wind this baby down. A lot of people end up saying, and I know this happens oftentimes, is that people somehow are waiting for permission. They're waiting for permission, whether it's from mom or whether it's from dad or a brother or sister or the bully that bullied them back in grade school. And they then start to think it's something to do with a sense of self-worth. No, it's self-respect.
Yes.
Your parents, your grandparents, your great-great-granddaddy. I mean, the people who had to endure tortuous moments, they probably have gone through hell and back. They probably have to travel vast parts of land or sea to be right where you are. To make your life possible, you have no idea the gravity of sacrifice and the presence of consistent courage it took for you to have the life you've got right now. So this is not just about self-worth. This is about self-respect and respecting your genealogy. You owe the future generations to get your ass in gear and live the life you've been gifted.
Right. And I look at, and I hold myself accountable to this, and I actually wrote this down. I actually have, what do they call flashcards? I'm a flashcard guy. So I would just have flashcards and flip them. That was me, man. Like, even like, that's how I used to would train a lot of salespeople. I would write, like, what's your major objection? Here's how to handle that, but here's what you need to think. So when I used to write flashcards, I actually wrote this down. I was like, every day I wake up in the morning, I am living someone's dream that someone is praying their ass off for. It's just, and to just keep myself aligned to that way of thinking, that I'm like, I got to get up. I got to keep moving. I got to keep growing. What can I learn that I don't know? But that's what a lot of people don't understand, that it's not all the books and all the shit that I've read and all the things that I've taken in. It's the amount of knowledge that I take in and make it my own. I don't just learn something and just, okay, I learned it. No, did you really learn it? Did you implement it where you are right now? And we keep touching on this, and it's this survival. Your subconscious mind, I want everyone to pay close attention. Your subconscious mind is so freaking powerful that you have no idea when you're going to need a piece of information that you read in a book or listening to this podcast. And until your moment when you're forced and put into chaos, and you're going to need that little secret and whatever that nugget might be, and you will pull it out of your subconscious mind like that, and you'll survive. That's what entrepreneurship is. Can I survive today? Are you willing to destroy the version of yourself today to become the version of who you should be? You got to let go of all these accolades. You can't carry your freaking bio with you, Rich. That bio is not going to get you in that door. Your vibration will.
You can't get to second with a foot on first, brother.
That's right, man. You can steal it. I was like, I'm rounding third. I'm going to get it. So, like, man, there's so much. So, there's Rich. Was it Rich U?
Yes,
right.
Sir.
You're opening up a door for that. Well, I mean, obviously my teams will put together and put it into the show notes. Like, what is the best way to? I wouldn't say just get to you, because the easy way is social media. I mean, let's be real. But that's not. But what is the best way to get to your team and to the person of influence will get to you?
Yeah, no, you bet. I mean, first and foremost, we watch this very carefully, but following me on Instagram, of course, Richard Dolan, is a great place just to get a good sense of just who I am, what I do, and where I've been. That's what's really nice about Instagram. Number two, though, is that when you do visit our website, richarddolan.com, we have a free show that we host every single Wednesday called The Sport of Rich, where I assert that life's a game, play it to win. And we spend a lot of time talking through a free conversation. When people get immersed in our conversations, what they begin to say is like, you know what, I want more. So if they want to get more access to tools, plans, and planning tools, we have a Rich U, which is there's no contract, cancel anytime. If I'm not producing value, you shouldn't pay. That's just the way we operate. And so for $99 a month, you get to have access to our vault shows. We have our own show called The Courageous Conversation, where I get to interview all my celebrity clients on a regular basis. I just booked Steve Aoki today. I got Eminem coming in about 3 months. We've done Mike Tyson, the late Larry King. I gave him his last interview before.
I was going to, you mentioned that. Thank you for bringing that up. And God rest his soul, man.
God bless him.
Man, I tell you what, the amount of skill it's dying today, that he's forgotten more than what he actually would you seen the version of him of interviewing people, and that's just such an amazing individual. Wow.
Well, and that's the whole point. I mean, we all interview different people, but what I have a really great knack in, and back to the whole product profile and what we're offering is we give people a certain level of access. Like this Friday, I got Tony Hawk. I mean, I was inspired to ride a skateboard because of Tony Hawk. So, I mean, I'm at that juncture in my life where I'm in my 40 somethings. And people that are legendary that are in their 50s or 60s, even 70s, like David Hasselhoff, which I fell in love with for Knight Rider or Baywatch, just to name a few.
Knight Rider. I was a Knight Rider guy. Wasn't it like Baywatch? I was already got to a certain age. I'm like, oh yeah, the hot girls. I didn't even see them.
Right. Exactly.
Knight Rider was the shit. It's like,
you get what I'm saying? So it's a cool movement, man. I mean, it's a great conversation. It's people getting to learn from different walks of life, and in this digital age where we're not in quite live, event mode quite yet, people still get to say, hey, you know what? On a Friday, I'm going to get to spend the afternoon with a Marlon Wayans or a Mike Tyson or a Lennox Lewis or Roy Jones Jr. post his return to the ring to see how did it really go and how did that feel to get hit by him. So we're just having these real conversations. So, I mean, look, a free show, Rich U, and then you get to learn whatever else you might need and or want to get your hands on. Right.
And I'll definitely make sure that, every person, comes in. We get a lot of I'm so blessed, man.
You are.
And it just, I'm so blessed to be able to have an opportunity to interview great individuals. And I know that you feel the same way, and that's why you're able to do what you do in the levels that you're doing it. But it's the way that you make others feel when you're interviewing them, and that's why they are so open to being, I guess, in a position where they would share just a little bit more because they're having a conversation with Rich. And that's something that I strive for in each and every day when I interview an individual. I'm like, listen, okay, it's easy to put show notes and it's easy to put in a little bit of work and find a little bit more about them. but it's not it. It's about the conversation and the energy that you want to make sure that you're holding space with that individual.
Well, and energy lives in conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're down, if you're stuck, if you're in a rut, which is, all the things that people can experience on any given day, whether it's a Monday, a Tuesday, or any day. I mean, you've just got to get yourself in a conversation that elevates you. And like, I mean, God bless you for 4 seasons, man. I get it. I get what it takes to run these shows, to do these shows. I mean, God bless you for the work in your team and what you all do to do this. I mean, as long as you're in a conversation, you're in elevation. But the minute you're out of that conversation, remember, guys, I want you to write this down. Everything works when you work it. Everything. But the only way you can make it work is through conversation. So everything is accessible through conversation. So if you're not in a conversation with someone, if you're not accessing expertise, mentorship, training, development, insight, or thought leadership, if you're not in a conversation, you're not pursuing elevation. So, we're having conversations. You and I are having a conversation. First of many, I'm sure, to come. And just if you want to be in action, folks, you got to be in that conversation.
Right. Rich, again, I'll leave everybody with this. I've read on I think it was the website, it says billion raised, millions reached, thousands shared, and hundreds endorsed. I couldn't even say it any better. I was like, man, I don't know who wrote that or you came up with that yourself. I was like, that just says it all right there. I'm in. Yeah. So guys, if you're paying attention to this and you've made it this long in this conversation, I promise you, your future self will reward yourself for this. I mean, just take massive action, but also pay very close attention to the subtle things that he dropped on this conversation. And every single second it went by, I appreciate and I cherish. Thank you so much, Rich.
Hey, Chris, first, a pleasure to you and your listeners. Thank you so much for having me. Of course, Nate May, he's our brother, so I appreciate him. But most importantly, man, this is the beginning of an epic journey ahead. I mean, I've learned so much about you in this conversation. And there's no shortcut to a relationship. You got to put the time in. Yeah. And I'm grateful for you and the investment of yours in me. So thank you.